All right, welcome back everyone to The Explainer. I hope you're all doing incredibly well today. You know, as the original host of this story always says when signing on, we need to make sure we are on the side of good. And let me tell you, I am definitely on the side of good today, and we are absolutely going to need that kind of positive energy. Why? Well, because today we're unpacking a terrifying listener-submitted case file that's going to require us to pay very, very close attention to the details. So grab a seat, settle in, and let's dive into this incredibly chilling account to break down exactly what happened. If you write it, write in such a way that people are forced to believe it. Because what happened, happened, even if you don't believe it. Just think about the gravity of that statement for a second. The sheer authority there is striking. This is the ominous warning given by an imam to our storyteller's elder brother, a man going by the pseudonym Ashik. It sets this really heavy, unyielding tone right from the jump, doesn't it? The imam is making it crystal clear that this isn't some made-up campfire fable to scare kids. No, this is a documented, real-world encounter with the unknown. So to really ground us in the facts here, this account actually comes to us through a highly meticulous letter. It was submitted by a man named Nur Muhammad, writing to us all the way from Bogra District, Ohio. And Nur Muhammad and his brother Ashik, they didn't just casually jot this story down from memory over a cup of coffee. No, they actually checked their submission 7 distinct times. 7 times, just to make absolutely sure there was zero mistakes in the text. They wanted the absolute, unfiltered truth of the imam's account to be recorded precisely as he told it. To understand the reality of this case, we have to start with our primary subject. Let me introduce you to Arobi. She was just an 8-year-old girl, and she was known throughout her entire community for being exceptionally calm, really quiet, and deeply devoted to her faith. I mean, she was diligently learning to read the Quran and to pray every day. The crucial takeaway here is that we're starting with a baseline of pure, absolute innocence and piety. Keep that in mind as we move forward. Because out of nowhere, that baseline just completely shatters. We go from this calm, devoted little girl to a truly terrifying aftermath. According to the account, everything flipped on one specific Thursday night. That's when this new, slow creep of terror really began to take over the house. She started doing these bizarre things like sitting straight up in her sleep. Her eyes would be wide open, but she'd be staring unseeingly, like she was entirely disconnected from our world. And even more disturbing, she began clamping her hands over her ears in absolute agony whenever the call to prayer happened. The shift was so abrupt and so unnatural, there was just no mistaking it. And then we hit the breaking point. This body is too small. Can you even imagine the pure, unadulterated terror in that room? Arobi's mother literally screamed in horror when she heard those words in the dead of night. Because, you guys, it wasn't the voice of her sweet 8-year-old daughter. Those words came out of the child's mouth in this strangely heavy, entirely unfamiliar and harsh tone. That is the exact moment the family knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that they weren't dealing with a simple fever or night terrors. Section 1. The Madrasa Encounters. Seeking help. Facing something totally beyond their comprehension, the village realized the medical and the mundane just didn't apply anymore. Their only option left was supernatural intervention. The imam who took on the case detailed the intense sensory experience of that very first meeting. As soon as they brought the little girl into the room, he noted that the air itself felt strangely, suffocatingly heavy. There was this undeniable, almost tangible feeling of an invisible presence right there in the room with them, an unseen guest. And through all of this, Arobi just sat there, completely motionless, her head bowed down, not saying a word. Then, suddenly, the tension in the room just snaps. The imam was about to speak, but before he could even utter a single syllable out loud, right after he simply recited Bismillah internally, just in his own mind, Arobi slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were completely changed. They weren't hers anymore. She looked right at him, and in this terrifyingly calm voice, she said, "You didn't call me." The imam was totally taken aback. The entity was already a step ahead, literally reading his internal thoughts before the exorcism even started. Things escalated rapidly from there, and it got incredibly dangerous. The imam realized right away this entity wasn't going to give up its identity easily. So they decided they had to bring Arobi to the madrasa every single night, specifically because the entity's power seemed to peak in the darkness. Now, the first few nights, the imam simply recited verses from the Quran, but her reactions, they went from intense crying fits on night 2 to this deeply unsettling laughter on night 3. By night 4, she was displaying physical strength that was literally impossible for an 8-year-old child. It was like the entity was actively testing the imam's limits. Section 2. The fifth night. Full exorcism.
The tension was at an absolute boiling point now, and passive recitation just wasn't going to cut it anymore. It was time for a direct confrontation.
Let's walk through the incredibly methodical preparations the imam made on that crucial 5th night. Step 1, close the door, effectively sealing them in together. Step 2, dim the lights, taking total control of the environment. Step 3, open the Quran. This was the quiet calm before the storm. Every single action was deliberate, quiet, and precise. It built this massive, suffocating sense of impending doom right before the climax of the fight. The moment the imam actually began reciting the surahs, chaos literally erupted in the room. The energy completely fractured. Arobi started screaming, but the imam described it as sounding like someone's throat was actively being torn open. It gets crazier. The physical environment itself began to warp around them. A heavy lamp in the corner of the room started sliding and moving entirely on its own. But the imam, he held his ground. He just kept reciting louder and louder, pouring on the pressure until he could actually feel the entity starting to weaken. Finally, Arobi completely collapsed to the floor. As her small body hit the floor, this harsh, desperate wail ripped from her mouth. "Stop!" But the imam didn't back down. He recited even louder. And again, the jinn inside her shouted so harshly, "Stop!" This right here, this is the crucial turning point of the entire case. The imam was finally forcing the entity into absolute submission, actively breaking its control over both the physical space and the child.
Seizing that advantage, the imam demanded to know exactly who he was dealing with. "Who are you?" he commanded. And finally, the breakthrough moment arrived. The jinn submitted, and it finally spoke its name. "I am Khanas." After 5 grueling, terrifying nights, this was the very first time the imam heard the true name of the entity he had been battling. Section 3, a lingering presence. The aftermath. Following that intense exorcism, Arobi slowly and fully recovered. And honestly, you'd think this is where the story wraps up, right? But the nightmare was really just shifting its focus. Because from that night onward, the imam himself began to change. It turns out, his victory came with a terrible, unspoken personal cost. He began to experience these deep, really unsettling anomalies creeping into his own daily life. The entity, Khanas, was definitely no longer inside Arobi, but it hadn't left the board. The imam began to endure some intense psychological warfare. Just imagine the paranoia. While he was standing in prayer, which is supposed to be his most sacred, vulnerable moment, he would suddenly feel the distinct, heavy sensation of someone standing directly behind him. Or he'd wake up in the dead of night, the house completely silent, only to hear these soft, impossible sounds moving around. The psychological warfare had only just begun. And those soft sounds in the night, they weren't just random house noises. When he'd wake up in the total darkness, the imam would feel someone whispering, incredibly softly, right into his ear, "I haven't lost." Talk about a terrifying assertion of power. It's this constant, dark reminder whispering in his ear that the battle was far from finished. So naturally, when hearing this crazy account, Ashik asked the most logical question anyone would ask. "So, you've won, right?" But the imam didn't answer right away. Instead, there was just this long, heavy, and ultimately defeated silence. You know the kind. It's the kind of silence that tells you the answer before the words even leave a person's mouth. The imam finally broke that silence with a profoundly chilling statement. He said, "I only managed to save Arobi, but some entities don't admit defeat." The crucial takeaway here is his grim realization. His victory was strictly tactical. He won the battle to save the little girl's soul, for sure, but the larger war with the jinn named Khanas, that was far, far from over. The imam actually ended his story by stating, in a very low voice, that Khanas is still out there. He merely changed his place. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly unsettling question to wrap up our explainer today. If Khanas simply changed his place, where is he now? Is he lurking in the corners of a quiet room? Is he waiting in the heavy air? As you process the facts of this case file today, maybe just take a quick glance over your shoulder, just to be completely sure who might be standing right behind you. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer. Stay curious, stay focused, and I'll see you next time.